Vide Ton Sac, the new podcast by Nightline France, which gives a voice to students. This month, we're giving a voice to students who are involved in associations. In this fourth episode, we interviewed a former volunteer of Nightline France who now works with the permanent team as part of her service civique.
Hello, this is one of Nightline's volunteer and I'm going to share with you some of my tips to have a good mental health this year. I decided I needed to move a bit more. It's really important for me because I need a high quality of sleep every night to feel good every day, and moving around, I found that it really helped me. So what I usually do is I try to walk for 5k every day. I also don't take the elevators, only stairs, especially if I have to climb 8 floors and stuff like that. And I do some yoga also, or stretching every night for 20 to 30 minutes. And it's really helpful when you want to go to sleep faster and just sleep faster.
Hello, this year I've been trying to look after my mental health by giving myself structured time off and just generally trying to be more organized.
When Zooming gets too much or connecting with friends online is just not enough, I enjoy writing letters to people that I care about. The benefits are twofold. On one hand, letters allow me to unwind and to take some time to reflect on my choices and the world around me. On the other, they are a nice way to help myself by helping others. It might seem a bit too old-fashioned, but after all, who wouldn't like to receive a letter?
This year, I made a conscious decision to improve my mental health by doing things that always made me happy. And reading fictional books is one of them. Unfortunately, I wasn't really able to read for leisure the last couple of years due to studies and work. Therefore, I decided to take up the challenge of reading at least 2 books every month. And at least till now, it has been going great.
So this year, I wanted to take up a new activity. I think it's important to have something to look forward to, like at night or just in general. So I signed up for an online class. I'm not sure I will use the thing I'm learning. I'm not sure it'll be useful at all, but I like it. So I'm happy and it's something to look forward to, I also took up an instrument, fortunately for my neighbors. But again, it just makes me happy and I think it's important.
Ivy, thanks for joining us today. Could you please introduce yourself? Tell us where you're from, your age, what did you study, and how long have you been living in France?
Hello, Marion. Thank you for having me here on Vide Ton Sac. So yes, my name is B. Kasedjian. I started volunteering with Nightline back in September 2019, and I'm now doing a service civique, which is a little bit like an internship. I have been living in Paris. This is my 4th year now. So I did a 3-year French degree at the University of London Institute in Paris. And yes, it's my 4th year.
And so you're originally from the UK?
Yes.
Is it hard being away from your family at the moment?
So yeah, I'm originally from Birmingham in the UK. Yes and no. It is difficult being away from my family at the moment because obviously I miss them and they mean a lot to me. But at the same time, I'm finding it a little bit of a weight off my shoulders living alone because my parents are both in high-risk categories with COVID and everything. So it does feel like a little bit of a relief to not be worrying that I'm potentially passing something on to them living with them.
So what's your involvement with Nightline France? When did you first join Nightline as a volunteer, and how did you first hear about it?
So I first joined as a volunteer in September 2019. I heard about Nightline through an email that the welfare officer on the Students' Union at my university sent. I think Patrick contacted the Students' Union and the welfare officer sent this email around to all the students. And it sounded interesting, so I applied and went through the volunteer process. And now I'm part of the communications team, working on developing the English line specifically, sometimes doing translation, and just supporting the projects in the communications team overall, in my service civique.
Mm-hmm. And for those of you who don't know who Patrick is, because he's the founder of Nightline here in France. And so about your current involvement with the Nightline, can you tell us why you chose to enroll as a service civique?
Yes, well, I really enjoyed my time volunteering for Nightline, and I was excited to hear that there was an opportunity to get further involved. And I believe in developing the English line because as a international student myself in Paris, I know that it can be quite isolating, and having a listening ear, from other fellow students, I think is a valuable thing. I also believe in not only encouraging people to call, but also to volunteer because I gained so much from that experience. It was an opportunity for me to learn a new skill and meet new people in a very multilingual environment, which as a linguist was a very exciting thing.
Mm-hmm. Did you know Nightline back in the UK or?
Yes, so I knew of Nightline. I knew that there were hardworking volunteers who stayed up all night and would offer support, but I didn't really know the details. So I actually learnt more about it in France than in the UK, ironically, even though it's based in the UK.
Yeah, and it's more famous in the UK actually, right?
Yeah, it's well known, and yeah, I mean it's one of our main projects here is to kind of remove the taboo around mental health and to raise awareness so that more people have heard of associations like Nightline here in France.
Mm-hmm. And so you told us that you were focusing on the English line during your service civique. Can you tell us a bit more about this English line? So how many volunteers are there? Where do they typically come from? Are they all English native speakers or do they come from all different countries? And also, is the line open every night?
So the English line is made up of approximately 25 volunteers at the moment, although we are recruiting and training more. They're all based at our Paris office, and we essentially redirect calls from our other branches. So we take calls from Paris, Lille and Saclay at the moment. And we're working on expanding that to our other branches, such as Lyon and Toulouse is in the works. The community of volunteers is very diverse. They're all students, so quite a young population, but from all over the world. I've met people from Greece, from Spain, Argentina, a couple from the UK like myself, but it's pretty diverse. And sometimes English is their first language, but not always. So the English line is open every night except for Tuesday and Wednesday at the moment. And the hours are 9 p.m. till 2:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm. And do you think the line will be open every night eventually?
I think that could happen. Yes. I mean, if we had enough volunteers, why not? I think there's a lot of new directions we could go in, whether that be offering different languages or, different opening hours. It's all to play for.
Mm-hmm. And, you mentioned other languages. So imagine someone calls and, maybe they hear that the volunteer is from the same country as them. Like if I was German and I called and I hear a German accent, like do volunteers sometimes switch? Can a caller say, can we speak German now because I can hear that you are German, for example?
Yeah, so in theory, if the caller and the volunteer taking the call felt equally confident speaking in whichever language, then yes, that's perfectly fine. The main thing is communication and being able to understand what you're saying. So yeah, of course.
Do you think in certain cultures there are people are more at ease with speaking about mental health than in other cultures?
I think that's a really good question. I mean, from my experience of living in France, all of the people that I've met who are from France have said that there is this taboo around mental health, more so than, say, in the UK. I don't know if it's specific to just culture, but also age. And I feel like our generation is a little bit more open to speaking about mental health. But I mean, it really it depends as well on the individual, their personal experiences with their own mental health and that of their family. So I think it can be a cultural thing, but it's also very individual and personal, your experience with your mental health and whether you've had the opportunity to talk about it before or not in your early formative years.
Okay, so if I want to join Nightline as a volunteer, how and where do I apply and what are the requirements?
So simply, if you just go to our website, you will find a section devoted to becoming a volunteer, and you can click apply, and you'll have to fill out a quick form and then have an interview process. And in the interview, we will assess whether we think you're suitable. So there are no specific qualifications required, as we do all of the training for you, which is active listening training. But it's more about your personal qualities, your personality, your emotional intelligence and ability to communicate and listen.
One of the main requirements is, of course, to be a student.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And to be located in a city where we have a branch.
Mm-hmm, for sure. So at the moment, it's we're just in Paris, Lille, Saclay, Lyon. As I said before, working on developing a branch in Toulouse and hopefully continue to expand across France. But yes, for now, you would have to be based in one of those cities and a student.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned the training. You said you talked about active listening. So can you tell us a bit more about what active listening is and also how long is the training?
Yes, so essentially active listening is a tool we use where the volunteers listen without giving directive sort of feedback or advice. They quite simply create and facilitate a space where the caller feels they can talk about whatever it is that might be on their mind. As we are not psychological clinicians, we cannot give very directive advice or, for example, prescribe medication or anything like that. We are students who take on probably the most basic form of psychological support training, which is active listening. So there is a limit to what we can do. But for some people, that really is enough, just having someone who can listen. So the active listening training takes the form of about two intensive weekends where you will be trained by former and more experienced volunteers. At the moment, we're running that part-time in person and also online due to social distancing. And you will essentially work through a series of role plays where you act out various different types of calls. I remember when I did my volunteer training, I was quite surprised by the amount of the range of calls that we receive. Sometimes people will call to have quite an informal chatty call about just what they've done on the weekend or what shows they're watching on TV. It can also range from that to anything to suicidal calls, or sometimes calls that are largely made up of silence. And these were all like part of a long list of different types of calls that I hadn't thought of quite how many we can receive. We also talk the volunteers through how to deal with abusive calls.
And do you keep training volunteers after the initial training?
Yeah, so there is an opportunity for the volunteers to have what we call sharing meetings throughout the year with their fellow volunteers and the representative from each line. So we have a representative for the English line who is part of our conseil d'administration, where we will discuss The calls, obviously not using any identifying information, but we'll anonymously discuss the calls, and it's an opportunity to refine our own skills, discuss, challenges that might be coming up, and share new ideas to just keep on developing our skills and refining our techniques for taking calls.
And do you have like any special training? Are there any special questions that are tackled linked to this maybe cultural gap or the fact that people are living away from home? Or is it the same training as the French one, just translated?
I think it's pretty much the same as the French, but translated, although we will discuss that. As you say, we'll probably have a moment where we focus a little bit on questions such as isolation and assimilation into a new culture, that it perhaps isn't discussed on the French training, but it is largely very similar.
Apart from the listening service, what are the other actions carried out by Nightline?
So Nightline also has several projects, for example, interventions in prépa colleges, where we have our own on-site psychologist who goes and visits students and holds workshops centering around mental health, how to look out for the signs of your own mental health deterioration or that of your peers. And also we have various campaigns throughout the year. One of our most recent campaigns has been the Soutien Étudiant campaign, which I was part of, which basically we were creating a database of resources of free psychological support all across France, which involved essentially calling up every city in the country, finding out all of the access points for students, and asking them, what kind of services do you offer? Is it free? Is it still open during the lockdown periods or not? And what languages can your professionals speak? So this campaign was started in the first lockdown back in March 2020, and then we updated it in November for the second lockdown period in France. And then other than that, we're working on developing new branches across France, and most recently that being Toulouse. So all of that takes time. It takes communications work, recruiting new volunteers, setting up offices in all these different cities in France. So yeah, quite busy.
And we also, as part of this campaign, we partnered with influencers, and mostly French influencers, but we did partner with one Indian influencer based in France, who made a video in English. So if you want to check that out, he's called Karan Punjabi. And he talks about what it's like to be a foreign student in France during this period of time. About mental health, according to you, what is mental health? Why is it important to you, and how would you define it?
I think that's such a important question. It's like a simple question, but it's also very complicated. So for mental health, we can say that it's the condition and the state of your well-being. For me, it's sort of how your emotions affect your thinking, and I think it's really important to challenge faulty thinking. So when when your thinking gets distorted, or when your emotions are fluctuating in such a dramatic way that it's becoming difficult for you to carry out everyday tasks and that kind of thing. But I also like to try and define it by comparing it to physical health, in that a lot of people feel more comfortable talking about physical health as a concept. But it's just as important, sometimes more, that we maintain our mental health. For me, it's always been something I can talk about quite comfortably. I suppose I'm grateful to have come from a family where it's not a taboo. Both my parents work in the mental health sector for a living, so it's it's quite a normal dinner time topic of conversation, which I appreciate as I get older is not actually the case for a lot of people. But yeah, it's a subject close to my heart that I think affects everyone, and it feels really special to be part of an association where mental health is at its core. For that, I'm very grateful.
So what are the upcoming projects for the English line?
So at the moment, I've been working on developing a partnership with actually my old university, the University of London Institute in Paris, to not only promote the service so that students know they can call us, but also to encourage them to come and volunteer for Nightline as I did. And yes, so the English line is also undergoing development this year in terms of recruiting more volunteers and hopefully increasing our calls, as we are very keen to reach out to as many people in need as possible. And hopefully we will have English speaking volunteers across all of our branches and not just in Paris.
And yeah, personally, are you involved in any other associations?
Yes, so recently I've been in contact with a few associations. One is English pour tout le monde. I'm yet to actually work with them, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to soon, because they're undergoing a few adjustments. They're trying to figure out how they're going to adjust during the current pandemic situation. It does affect their work, but essentially they offer English lessons to refugees here in Paris. And so I'm either going to try and help prepare some of those English classes, or help at a day centre that they're hoping to run and put on activities and food and drink and that kind of thing soon. I've also been in contact with SOS Homophobie, which they're pretty well known, but association that works at fighting against homophobia in general and LGBT phobia more at large. So I'm hoping to either help with their communications, or they also have a listening service like we do at Nightline, so I might look into some volunteer work with them.
So what are your personal resolutions for this upcoming year, especially to take care of your own mental health, but also take care of others?
Well, obviously this year has been quite challenging for everyone, myself included. So to try and support and maintain a good level of mental health and balance myself, I'm trying to just be a little bit more mindful. If anything, I've learnt that plans really can change, for better or for worse. So as much as you can plan, and as much as I value that, it's been important for me to develop my ability to adapt and be flexible, and be more present and be grateful for what I have in the moment, which may sound cheesy, but I completely stand by it. So sometimes I will try and do like mindfulness exercises or meditation or yoga, but more often I will actually just do other activities that have kind of mindful qualities, whether that be music, listening or playing music, exercise I find quite helpful as well, and just trying to maintain the social connections that we can have, whether that be at work or with friends, or contacting my family back in the UK. So yeah, just trying to appreciate the small things, going on a lot more walks than I probably used to do. And yeah, similarly, I actually think helping other people and supporting your friends and family in your community does a lot for your own mental health as well as theirs. I always feel better when I feel like I've come away from a phone call with a friend who's maybe struggling with something. It always makes me feel better that I've kind of given them a little bit of time, and we've maybe worked through some new ideas that can help them. So yeah, just generally trying to be more mindful overall.
All right. Would you like to add anything?
Well, just that. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Firstly, thank you so much for being such a lovely colleague as well. You know, you're one of the many people that I've been really lucky to meet this year, and it's just been a nice reminder that, you know, even in some of the darkest of times, there are little signs of hope. And I've met some brilliant people this year, and I feel immensely privileged to say that, you know, this year has been one of the biggest challenges I've ever been through, and yet I still have, you know, a roof over my head. I'm living in Paris, you know, I have a little studio in Paris. I have a brilliant job. I have, you know, lovely colleagues and employers and community and friends. So my heart goes out to those of you that are, you know, really struggling, that have had losses in the family, businesses that have, you know, had to shut down and things like this. So, yeah, if you are listening and especially if you're a student and you want to contact us and kind of let it all out, you know, have a chat, and hopefully we can be of some help.
Thank you, Bea, for telling us more about yourself and about the English line and your involvement with Nightline. I learned some stuff too. So
cool.
Thank you.
Oh, very welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on our latest content. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at Nightline France. Take care and feel free to call Nightline if you need to talk. We're here for you.